Hello YouTube, it's Ryan the Talesend, and I haven't posted anything for a long time other than my explanation of why I'm sick. And I thought I needed to do this question because I watched unfortunately, episode of House. Isn't my hair awesome? Um, and I had a question: would you rather be stupid and really happy, or would you rather be smart and really unhappy? That is one of the dilemmas that I have in my life. I'm not bragging or anything. I'm not saying anything, but I was tested for my IQ when I was quite a young age. That was, for whatever reason, common in LA County. They wanted to pick up the kids who had a high IQ, and I'm not sure why that was one of the things that was done, but that was one of those things that was tested when we were in kindergarten. I was again tested again in ninth grade and again in college, both times because there were concerns that I had a learning disability, and turns out in college that they found six of them with me, and that's not something that I thought could happen or would happen, but it is something that has profoundly changed my view on what constitutes yourself as smart or not. That being said, the I mean, the learning disabilities I have are something that haven't really affected my life in such a way that it alter the course of how I would become who I am. When I was a child and I was reading in the closet, we can talk about that later, but that's not the point. When I was reading, and a lot of times when I was talking, I remember when I was 6 or 5 years old and I was still in kindergarten, maybe first grade, I had a terrible stutter. And the only people I spoke English with was my parents, who have a pretty strong Filipino accent. So everything that came out of me sounded like this. And it's it's something that Filipinos and anyone who has parents that are of a foreign origin that has an accent that is strong can make fun of their parents, but it's also something that you have to just deal with because that's what's going to happen to you. And when I had a difficulty remembering a word, or you get stuck in a word, you go up, 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 or a lot of the times, and you'll see it when I talk here, or if you talk to me in person, that I pull out a word that is super duper a vocabulary word, and it's something that here, this is actually a verbal stutter for me. I wasn't able to complete like my thought, but if you got a word and you say, like, okay, I went to with my mom to KFC today, and I said that someone had a brusque uh, sense of reality. Their brusque is a word that wouldn't be used necessarily to describe someone's personality, and it's more like rough or something like that. But I pull words and I have a high vocabulary because I need to get around the words that are normal, simple words that you and I could speak and normally talk about. And it is one of my coping mechanisms if I'm not able to produce a kind of thing, and I'm not a person who you are. I am very, adept with. No, someone who I'm familiar with. Then a lot of the times I will pull words completely out of nowhere, words that are, typically SAT words and stuff like that. And it always gave me that questioning. Everyone always gave me that questioning look. You have this certain proclivity towards words that no normal high school teenager would use, and your English teacher stares at you because you're just like, you can pull out sentences that no one would normally understand. What I'm trying to say is that I'm different from you. I've known ever since I was little that I was smarter than most of the individuals that were in my class. The fact that I knew what reading was before everyone else did. I was reading by the time I was in kindergarten. I'm not talking just regular kids' books. I was reading the encyclopedia. I was reading magazines, Reader's Digest, things like this, and I would ask my parents, "What's this? What's this? What's this? What's this?" And they'd be like, "Why are you reading this?" And that continued throughout my life. It's something that, I mean, reading is kind of my like therapeutical kind of way of reaching the goals of my education farther than other people would necessarily read. But the problem with me as well is when it comes to stuttering, it also comes with reading skills. I generally have to read something about 3 or 4 times before I understand it, because there are words that will just disappear when I read it. When I read it the third time, I'm like, oh crap, I did not see that word for the whole time that I was reading it. This makes much more sense now. Another one of my coping mechanisms is that I learn to speed read. So if typically a person will take about 45 seconds to read a page, I can read it 4 times in about 30 seconds. So I'm still faster than a normal reader, and it's giving me problems because teachers have said and have accused me, saying that I have not read what we were supposed to read, and then they ask me questions and then I answer them, and then teachers are like, "Oh, you actually did read." And when I talk in ways that it seems like I'm putting you down, a lot of the times I'm not putting you down. If you talk to me, if you understand how I am, it just am that way. I don't mean necessarily to put you down or make you feel bad or whatever, 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 unless you insult me for whatever reason, and then I will do that. And it's made me, as an adult, not able to actually speak my mind the way that I would like to speak it, because most of the time I'm trying to not speak down to people, but then I need to explain to them a very simple situation that is very complicated. And a lot of the times I can't do it. I cannot convey a message saying, I mean, it's like a doctor explaining a illness to someone, and they use medical word, technical word, medical word, and people just won't get it. It's like when I talk to my mom, or most anyone who doesn't understand the Constitution, or has never read the Constitution, doesn't understand what the basic rights are. Trying to explain to them that what the basic rights are is amazingly frustrating, because there's no possible way to say it without dumbing it down. Freedom of speech covers 36 kinds of speech, 36, and many several thousand kinds of like hate speech and political speech and things like that. And you could not possibly tell someone how complex it is without you yourself feeling as if you've dumbed it down, or if you know you have to internalize it a lot of times. And a lot of times it irritates the crap out of me, and I just won't have some friends because I just cannot stand the way that they talk to me intellectually about major problems within the world, major things in the United States, and they simply lower it to a level where they actually do not fundamentally understand what I am talking about or saying. A lot of people would say that I was being elitist or being an asshole or any of these things, and a lot of the times I am being an elitist and I am being an asshole because there's some things that cannot and should not be dumbed down. The talking of freedom of speech and talking about the Constitution, talking about medical things. These are things that should not be dumbed down. The kidneys connect to your pee. It just it lowers the conversation to a point where one person is just talking to another person when the other person is completely and totally baffled on what the other person is talking about. And I've been humbled and I've been told since high school, since those English classes in which I was asking questions in such a way that the normal high school students in my senior English class could not possibly comprehend what I was saying because they just had such a small vocabulary that I couldn't do it. Like he asked my brother, he's like, "Why don't you just speak in normal English?" I'm like, "I can't just speak in normal English. This is a class about English literature. I can't speak in normal English." I mean, they don't speak normal English in English literature either. So I'm stuck with this horrible intellectual elite. The people who do actually put down people who do not understand the Constitution, the people who do put down people because they do not understand the basic fundamental rights and basic fundamental things that would happen to do with your health. And I, it leaves me in a place in which I am an extremely extroverted person. Extroverted, I mean, yeah, extroverted. I'm a people person. I cannot necessarily communicate with everyone because the way that I communicate is far too complicated for some and far too irritating for others. And nothing about it is fun. It's a place where you're like stuck in loneliness. You never have happiness. And so to be happy and stupid or happy and humble and happy and poor is okay. For me, money is not everything. For me, ideas are everything. And that's why I love talking to people who have those ideas that I can pick through, not necessarily agree with, but pick through. Excuse me. And um, these intellectual conversations that would go on for hours and hours with certain particular people are beautiful and wonderful and saddening at the same time because there's no way I could have this conversation with my mom. There's no way I could have this conversation with my brother. Deep philosophical things that I could not possibly explain. Things that things like dialectics that I could not possibly explain. Things like the difference between Asian and modern philosophy or Western philosophy, Greek philosophy, the distinctions between what is a human and what is not a human, the distinctions between what is a person that is able to marry and a person that's not able to marry. These are fundamental things, and there are huge fundamental questions that press on our society, and it's intensely lonely to have and to know what the opinions for yourself are and have no outlet to put it into. Um, the last few months, the only place that I was able to put any information was onto the internet, and the internet is not necessarily a bastion of productivity of the mind, or there's plenty of talent out there. There's plenty of people who have a good cause that they're going to save such and such. They're going to revive so and so place. These are people who have their mind set in the right place to help someone, to do good, to be a better person, but they could not possibly comprehend the stupid things. And when it comes down to it, it's the small things that matter. The small things like, do you have a place to live? Do you have a place to be able to breathe and you're not gonna die? Do you have food for the next day? I'm not sure if I just said that. Are you feeding hungry children? Does that person have a coat that is good enough for this weather? Very simple, concrete, simple questions. And I'm here trapped in, is there extraterrestrial life in the universe? Do the multinational corporations actually exist to take money from the poor and give to the rich? To know that the internet is so full of artistry and creativity and goodwill and badwill is amazing. But it's when it comes down to it, it becomes all of that like simple, very basic, the basic things in life. Do you have food? Do you have shelter? Do you have clothing? Do you have security? Do you know that tomorrow you're going to be where you are? Do you know that you will have a job? Do you know that if you'll have money to eat? It's so infuriating to be in a place where you're fighting with yourself and you're fighting with others because you believe in this fundamental other something. And the human nature of all of us, the kind of like jealousies that people have because someone became famous, or the jealousies because one agency got something that the other agency didn't get, or one nonprofit was able to get money from the government and another wasn't, and they do exactly the same thing. These people change the world more than the people who think about the world, because they actually do something with the world. And so to be one of these intellectual people who is trapped in their own reality, of like they can make the world better if they can do this macro thing, and these other people are just doing these micro things that are helping the world. That, and then people think you're snob. People think that you're snob because you're thinking of these like macro things that may or may not work. These things that are not going to give food to hungry people. These things that are not going to have the poor out of the cold. These things that are not going to give a jacket or a coat to someone who needs it. I honestly feel really lonely being up here. Happiness is food. Happiness is clothes. And when the founding fathers said life, liberty, and the pursuit of happiness, life is just living. Liberty is being able to live without someone harassing you, to be knowing that there's not going to be soldiers in your house, knowing that these grand ideas. It's even back then, the difference between the dorks and the realists, the people who talked about the ideal society, and the people who could give us the seeds for democracy, and the people who just wanted to have slaves so that they could further their good fortune on earth. Most of the time in the United States, we talk about philosophy and we go back to the founding fathers, and a lot of us don't even know who the founding fathers are. Did you know that someone who signed the Declaration of Independence was a French guy called Button Gwinnett? Everyone knows who John Hancock is, but do you know who John Adams is? And I'm not talking about the beer guy. I know this is very long and this is very ranty, and this is something that you probably do not actually want to watch. But to be stuck and ultimately bored and irritated out of your mind because people don't understand these grand ideas, or would you rather be that person who knows what they're doing, is doing it for their family. There are many times that I thought that my parents were doing it for the family and they weren't. But that's alright. That's just me. What do you think? Like, is it the grand ideas, the people stuck in their ivory tower, the ones that are intellectuals that think about these things? Do you think that they can save the world, or do you think it's just these grassroots? I'm not saying they're dumb or anything, but they're just these grassroots people who want to make a real difference in someone's life instead of these people who talk and talk and talk about stuff and they don't even know it. They don't even know what regular Americans are going through. They don't know that we're going to get food stamps because their unemployment check didn't come. We are the people who are buying 99-cent hamburgers because there's no other food source out there that we can buy that is cheap enough for us to hold on to whatever little money that we have. We're the people who worry about everything because you're one paycheck or one unemployment check away from falling off of the face of the earth. I'm lonely in the top. I like helping the people who are the actual doers. And I think the whole point of this was would you rather be dumb in a place that you know that you're happy, or a place that you know that you're humbled and you don't have a lot of money but you have the happiness that you need? Or would you be stuck in this unhappy mode because you're trying to accumulate money, or because you're trying to accumulate thoughts, and all these things kind of collapse on you? I mean, personally, this is what happened to me. It doesn't necessarily happen to everyone, but I mean, the fundamental things in life really are your like health, which I haven't had. You can tell from my face, which is all covered in stuff. Can't see now, but pimples and stuff everywhere. Is this what we want? Is this what we need? Sorry, I rambled for 25 minutes. Ryan the Tails End, signing off.